How to ace the roleplay in your GCSE French speaking exam, AQA edition. So I got a grade 9 in my GCSE French exam and I'm going to help you do the same. Let's get started. So I know everyone says that GCSE speaking is the most difficult part about French, but that's simply not true, okay? I mean, it's only 1.5 minutes long and it's only 10 marks. So come on, let's have a look at how to get these marks. Allez, c'est parti. Firstly, you have 15 minutes to prepare for the speaking exam, but some of that time you want to spend on the photo card, which is the other aspect we'll talk about in another video. So maybe spend about 7 to 8 minutes on the role play, but if you feel that you're really confident with it and that you're really good at it and the photo card's thing you struggle more with, then you can judge for yourself how to split your time. Number 1, firstly, please pay attention to the register. That means how formal do we want to speak? So you can find this out by looking at the question, just like this one here. If you're speaking to a cashier, hairdresser, a waiter, you need to use the formal vous form. But if you're speaking to a friend, you can use the informal too. However, if you're speaking directly to the examiner, so if you're asking them to repeat the question or to speak slowly, use vous because the examiner does not know you. So they are informal, you need to use vous in this scenario. Number 2, these roleplay cards are going to be on subjects you have studied during your GCSE years. There's not going to be anything rogue that you don't know. So you should really study the vocabulary, revise it like hell. Most days you should revise vocabulary leading up to your French exam, especially the speaking, because the role play is where that vocab's going to come in really handy, okay? You also need to make sure you know how to use daily conversation cues, just like you would in English, be polite, okay? It's a French exam, be formal, be polite. The subject is not going to be something really rogue, like, I don't know, the rise and fall of the French Revolution. You're just not going to get that, okay? So no need to worry, it's going to be something you've studied before. You obviously want to get some practice in before you do the role play. So I'd really recommend going on YouTube and looking for some tutorials on people doing role plays. Honestly, there's so many really helpful videos out there which take you through step by step what the teacher's going to ask you, how they're going to ask you, the setting you're going to be in. Honestly, they're super helpful. But I'd also really recommend asking your teacher to do a mock role play with you if they haven't already. You should have mock exams where they do this, but sometimes in specific scenarios they won't. Like during COVID, they might not do mock exams. So you need to be really careful and just make sure you are practicing, or even practice with a friend. Find a role play card online from a previous GCSE and just say, hey, can we practice this? Can you ask me questions? Can I answer? And they should say yes if they're good friends, but just please practice. That's super, super important for this role play. Number 4. This is a speaking exam, not a writing, not a reading. You need to use conversational phrases that are used in daily French speaking, okay? You can't just read a book and use phrases from that. You need to use things that French people use on the daily, such as en fait, which means in fact, but French people use that a lot. Say, en fait, I think this. En fait, j'adore ça. Something like that, okay? Or ça va bien, because that's something that French people say a lot when they greet each other. How are you? How are you doing? Ça va très bien, merci. So at the beginning, when you introduce yourself to the teacher, if the role play is the first thing that you're doing, you need to do greetings. Bonjour, salut, how are you? Ça va très bien, merci. Et toi? Ça va très bien. Okay? Greetings are super important. It's just a bit of being polite as well with the examiner. But you need to use these phrases. En fait, alors is a really good one. It's like a filler phrase. If you can't think of anything to say, you're like, panicking, just be like, alors, because it looks like, you're thinking about what to say. Instead of just having a silent gap, it's like, alors, and then you launch into your beautiful, sophisticated French. Number 5, you must ask questions to the examiner during this role play, okay? You need to. Students forget this every single year. I don't know how, okay? You just have to ask questions. There's even a question mark on the role play card that'll indicate you need to ask a question at this point, but I'd recommend asking an extra one because that shows the examiner like, yeah, she's confident, she can ask questions, okay? She knows the structure, she knows what she's doing. So ask multiple questions. For example, if it's a photo card, role play, on, let's see, spare time. Ask the teacher, what do you do in your spare time, Or do you like playing sports in your spare time? Ça va does not count as a question. I mean, it kind of does, obviously, but it's not a sophisticated question. It doesn't show off your vocabulary. It doesn't show off that you know how to ask questions, okay? So, of course, ask the teacher how they are when you start the exam, but also add those additional questions into. They're super important, and you will lose marks if you do not ask a question. At least one, but I recommend more. Number 6. The examiner will also ask you something unprepared. So you literally can't prepare for it. You don't know what they're going to say, you don't know what they're going to ask, but it's going to be related to the topic, obviously. So listen out for keywords from that vocabulary list for the subject that you are doing on this roleplay card, okay? So if it's like, again, spare time, listen to like hobbies, sports, okay? Listen out for those keywords that might help you understand the question. But if you don't understand, don't panic, okay? Breathe, relax, don't be like, oh my God, I don't know. Just be like, pouvez-vous répéter la question, s'il vous plaît, okay? Just a polite way of saying, please can you repeat the question? You won't lose marks for that because you're still speaking French. You know, you're still in the zone, you're still speaking French. But if you don't understand and need them to repeat it, just say that phrase, okay? And they will repeat it, okay? They're told to repeat it. If you don't understand, if you ask them to, they will repeat the question. Number 7. Look at the mark scheme. That's super important, okay? And for the role play for AQA, the mark scheme is super simple. It's actually weird, like it's super simple. You just have to make sure your answer is clear and not ambiguous, and you will get the marks. So make sure the examiner knows what you're saying, knows exactly what you are trying to get across to them, okay? A few mistakes is fine, you're at GCSE level. Make sure they know exactly what you're trying to say, okay? And you have to cover every single point on the role play card. Make notes against every point when you're preparing so you do not forget. And you know, if you're in the exam and you're like, oh my goodness, I've forgotten, look down at your notes. Okay, have I covered every single point? It doesn't have to be in that much detail. Here's an example of role play answers, and look, they're not even that detailed, okay? You just have to make sure you covered the points and the teacher understands exactly what you are trying to say. That is all. It doesn't have to be super detailed, okay? It just has to be clear. And good French, obviously, you know, try not to make too many mistakes. Try and get the tenses correct, the grammar correct if you can, but it's not that complicated. Number 8, speak in the correct tense. Oh my goodness. People trip up so much on this. You have to speak in the correct tense. If they are asking you something in the past on the roleplay card, speak in the perfect tense or the imperfect tense, okay? Speak in the correct tense. If it's future, speak in future. If it's present, speak in present. Do not slip into the wrong tense, okay? Please stay in the correct tense or you will lose marks because it will not be clear. Number 9. Remember, this is a speaking exam again, okay? So try and put some tone, intonation into your voice. You know, don't speak in a monotone voice like this. You have to put some tone into it. Put some, you know, little bit of pizzazz into it, okay? You know, if you're saying like, I'm sorry, I was late for my haircut. Oh, je suis désolée, je suis très très désolée. You know, something like that. You know, put a little bit of like almost drama into it because it's a conversation. You need to act like you're in a conversation and not like you're in an exam. That's super important. Number 10, make sure your answers aren't too long. As we saw earlier in the mark scheme, you do not need to give long, detailed answers, okay? You just need to answer the questions clearly. If you give your answers are too long, they will not be marked if you go over the time. If you've already covered the points and you keep talking, you will not get marks for whatever you say. You won't lose marks, but you won't get marks. And try not to run over the time because you don't have a lot of time for this question. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please do email me. My email is in the description below. I hope you learned some good stuff from this videos. As always, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.